I want to reference your manual and find out which socket you're using and utilize only the hardware that you're going to need and just set the rest aside. In our case, we're only going to be installing on the 1150 socket, so that's the only hardware we need to be concerned with. So reference the manual, find the hardware that fits with your socket, and just set the rest aside. Now, if you're going to be installing this on an Intel, you're going to be using these 4 holes that are the outer perimeter of the backplate. If you're going to be installing on AMD, you're going to be using the inner 4 holes that form the narrower rectangle. Please consult your manual to determine which ones are appropriate. Now you're going to take the standoffs and you're going to just drop them through the hole like so, with the screw facing inward. There's an arrow on this bracket. You're going to make sure that the arrow is pointing forward, and then you're just going to go ahead and slide the retaining clip over the screw. Once you have the retaining plastic pin on there, you can now see that the standoff can slide back and forth, which will allow this to line up with the different Intel socket configurations. Now, one thing that you need to keep in mind when you're putting together your backplate is that it is facing the proper direction. You want to make sure if you're installing for Intel that you can clearly see the word and read the word Intel. If you're installing for AMD, then you want to install it with the side facing AMD facing you. So just to recap, Intel should be facing you if you're doing Intel, and AMD should be facing you if you're doing AMD. Now, if at first the holes don't line up, remember that these do actually slide on the backplate, so you want to make sure that the retaining clips are actually allowing it to go into the motherboard, just like so. Now, you also want to make sure that the backplate is oriented with the AMD socket going up and down, because if you do it side to side, it might interfere with some motherboard trays. Beyond that, it really doesn't matter which way is oriented, as long as the retaining clips are actually going through to the front side. Now, with one hand holding the backplate into place, you want to take the retaining nut that actually corresponds with your socket and go ahead and thread that onto the motherboard to hold the backplate in place. This is going to allow us to actually have something to mount the block to once we get the block ready for installation. Now that we've got the motherboard prepped and ready to go, it's time to get the actual cooler and block ready for installation. Now, once again, refer to your manual to see which brackets correspond for your installation and for which way this should be oriented. Since we are installing on an Intel 1150, we are going to be using the Intel retaining brackets. Now, also refer to your hardware and find the retaining screws and install the brackets onto your block. Now, it's not time to peel that plastic off there yet. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get the radiator mounted into the top of this case. Now, every case is different, so you're going to want to go ahead and refer to your case and check the different configurations that are applicable to your case. Now, in the case of the, no pun intended, but in the case of the Cosmos SE, we are going to be putting the fans on the top of the case and the radiator on the bottom of the roof of the case. Now, this is something we're going to do in order to maximize the amount of clearance that we have between the motherboard and the radiator. In fact, in this case, there's just not enough room to mount them all on the inside. Now, every case is different, so refer to your case to see exactly what is compatible for you.